Hello everyone, welcome to the last episode of Bayview High School celebrating World Mental Health Day. Today I have three wonderful guests with me to talk about the relationship between parents and children and how is it that we can respond better to the children. The first guest for tonight is Mahwash Amer. She has been with Bayview High School for 17 years and she is also currently working at Habib Metropolitan Bank. The next guest for tonight is Mishaal Khan. She has been on the Dean's Honor List and she is also currently the head of Orators Club at Bayview High School. The last guest for tonight is Syeda Rida Asad. She is a clinical psychologist and is a CEO and co-founder of The Circle. The teenage years from like 10 all the way to 16. Children, because of peer pressure or other pressures around them, they might end up picking up some habits which may clash with their parents or their caregivers. So today we are here to discuss how is it that we can respond to those kids. How is it that we actually do? How do we react to certain situations? And why do we react in certain situations like that? So just discussing different ways we can deal with children and how is it that we can kind of improve that connection and that bond between a parent and a child during those years specifically. So Rida, as a psychologist, what would you say are the contributing factors to students acting in ways which is not expected or accepted by their parents or the heads of the school?
That's actually a good question, Aisha, and I'd like to answer that question in the light of this beautiful interior that we have got here. Any sort of change in this interior is going to bring discomfort to us as an adult because we are so used to of the environment. With kids, it's even more sensitive. With students and children, any sort of change in their family relationships, any sort of adjustment that they have to do, any cultural, any communal changes, trauma, stress that is adding to their environment can bring discomfort to them in ways that they are unaware of. And when we are facing discomfort and when children are facing discomfort, they like to deal with that by, asking that feeling to just like go away rather than processing it, which is why they develop some habits that are very instant, that are very quick, that are very relieving instantly. And that becomes a concern for parents because, it's different than what they had expected the children to adopt.
So I hear that, they are perhaps adopting new habits as a way of coping with their changing environment, right? And as they're, coping and developing new habits, we hear that parents obviously also have a difficult time coping and understanding how is it that, we navigate through this time. So Mahwash, as a parent, how do you navigate through these problems or through these situations? How do you respond to when your daughters, have these different behaviors to cope up with these changing environments? And how do they take that reaction?
I think what is really important in this the scenario that we're discussing is the comfort and the kind of relationship you have with your child. Because what I feel is, really getting around us is that as much as we want to have the kind of communication, a clear communication with our children, quite a lot of noise has added into it. You can call it, technology for that matter, peer pressure, the kind of environment that they, face in terms of competition, in terms of, at times we compare them with their own friends. So we, at times, out of our own, and being judgmental at the same time.
Absolutely.
So I think at times what happens is that they sort of get to a point where they start hiding their emotions, start hiding their feelings, and they start shutting down. This is where that relationship of a parent comes in, where you really have to make them understand and make them feel that they should have that confidence of coming to a parent and talk to a parent and also feel that this is where the solution will also come from. I want to really sort of sum up my answer to three factors. The comfort that you can give to a child. So, I tell my daughters, I said, I understand you've done a really, really bad thing, but you know what, come and tell me. Because I'm the one who's going to fix it and you can trust me. So the second point that I would like to emphasize here is the trust. The comfort that they can communicate it to you and they should not hide their feelings, their emotions, the pressures that they are coping with at times. Trust. They must trust their parents. Even if there are things that you as a parent would not want your child to be associated with, and it happens because the environment is not what we had 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I have a generation gap with my parents, and I've done things in my childhood which my parents have not. But my generation gap with my children is different, because technology has played an important role. As much as we're now exposed to so many things. I mean, they are interacting globally. They're looking at things globally. Any global, event that is happening, like you said, has an impact on their lives. So, what I would, again, going back to the scenario that we were discussing, comfort zone, your child should have that with the parent. Trust, they must trust that, whatever they're going to, if they're in a situation, the parent is there to help them with. And I think third and the most important thing for me is, that relationship they have with the friend. The friend at times do not judge them. The friend at times just accept them the way they are. You don't have to make your child the best child of the world at all times. You have to accept them the way they are.
Yeah.
Give them space.
Nice. So if I summarize, I love how you've beautifully explained how creating a comfortable space for your child is so important. And you mentioned that there are times when your child might shut down and might not feel comfortable sharing. To create that comfortable, no judgment zone for your child, right? So that they are able to share things with you comfortably, even if they've made a mistake. Right, so Mishaal, I come to you and I want to understand from the student's perspective on what happens when a teenager chooses to be a certain way, which may be different from what their parents expect and what the people or the adults around them expect.
I think a child's reaction to something would come from specifically from their childhood, the way they've been groomed into a child. Like, let's say, for example, a parent and a child, they argue in their childhood or something. If the treatment you're giving your child is not sitting down and talking about it, and it's silent treatment, then of course a child would be more closed off as a teenager than other children might be. But otherwise, I think, personally, I've seen it that when you go into teenagehood, you think your parents are like, I don't want to talk to them, my parents are embarrassing. But I think once you start to grow up, I have gotten closer to my mother, and I think I've seen my friends become closer to their parents. Because you start to realize that the best opinion or the best advice you can get is from your parent, because your parent and you do have a lot of similarities. So while I would go to my friends or my peers to ask for advice or opinions, and I might not like it because they're giving me something from their perspective, I might go to my parent and say, okay, I need you to help me with this, or I'm just ranting to them or something. And they give me some advice or an opinion which makes sense to me, then I will take it, and I think I would like it more.
I'd like to add to that. Actually, that's a very beautiful concept that you put forward. When a teenager, when a child is choosing to react in a certain way, it becomes very stressful for the parent as well. Because in that very moment, the parent is also not seeing the child as the child. It's actually them going back to what they could not have done as a child, and how they want their child to now not do that action again, and they actually desperately want their child, no, please don't do that what I did as a kid, or I don't have to be what my mom was to me. And that becomes a challenging struggle for both the parent and the child, because then they don't know how to navigate through that, because then it's like, okay, this is a new situation, I don't know which role to adopt, I don't know what to say, and then we choose to go with words that might be undermining, go with body languages that might be, unresponsive, unwelcoming, and that's happening like very unconsciously as well. And I love how you kind of connected it with how a child grew up in an environment and how that attributed to the way they are coping with challenges in their situations.
Yeah, I think I would like to add on that, I think once a parent realizes that they're actually doing that, that they're actually implementing their own feelings and expectations onto their child, they start to realize, okay, I'll give you an example. I have my own expectations from myself. And let's say I'm very persistent in my goals or my expectations, and once I don't get them, I'll be very disappointed. So just like that, when a parent has expectations to a child, and a child's not achieving them, then of course the parent's disappointed. So once you realize that your expectations shouldn't be so high, even personally, when I realized that, okay, I need to bring my expectations down, maybe I'm not capable of so much. So then you start to see and you start to observe that, okay, my child's doing actually great at what they're doing. So I think that's really good.
It takes very mindful effort to realize that our jobs as a caregiver, as a teacher, as a person who has a certain mentoring role in children's life is to not solve their problems, but to help them with skill set that could help them solve those problems at their own. So we are not the superheroes that would just wear the cape and, you know, shush shush, problem's gone. We are actually people who need to enable them with skills that they can, you know, solve those problems by themselves.
Yeah, and you know, if I just take it on from there, the first few years, and well, not few, but up until the time that they're teenagers, you know, that's where the entire thing is happening. Parents set their standards. They've got their own expectations because this is, I mean, I've never seen a parent who would not want their child to become great, to take A's, A stars, and, you know, not be a part of an orators club. Or, I mean, every parent would want it. And then we start setting standards. And this is exactly the time when you're teaching them, you know, making them a good person. You want to inculcate all those good things that you've ever thought that would be probably present in a superhero, as Rida mentioned. And then, so it becomes very challenging for the child also. Because one, they have to be able to, come forward in their lives and be there to achieve those standards that the parents have set. Secondly, they have to again at times be fighting with the concept of, you know, okay, this is what my parent is saying, and you know what, this is not what my friend is doing. So the conflict arises here.
Yes.
And these are the most difficult years between a parent, a teacher, and a child relationship.
Yeah.
A parent and a teacher both at the same time are trying to inculcate the best of the best in a child, and the child has got so many things around them, so a peer pressure is coming from one side, and from the other side, you know, it's like, oh, this is not what the world is doing, the world is going otherwise, you know. And I really love the way you said you've started getting close to your mother. It starts happening when you're towards the end of your teenage, because then you realize, okay, the worst part is over. You know, I'm not being, told not to do this, not to stand there, don't look at it like that, don't ask for this thing. You know, the don'ts start becoming, let's do it. You see, I mean, I'm telling you from my own experience. When my daughter was growing up, I wanted her to be the best. And with that, I had all those standards. And at times, I would feel that, you know, I've given her the tasks that at times she is not very comfortable doing it. And I've probably given her the task that she is not very, she's not aware of. The standards are too high for her. And then this is when I realized that we have to bring those standards down. And to a point where she's able to cope up, where she's more capable and confident to achieve it. So it's always a trial and an error.
So Mahwash, I hear that, you know, the early years of the teenage time is one of the most difficult ones for the child. And I think it's so important to support them. So at Bayview High School, you know, we acknowledge the difficult time that they're going through, and we try to provide as much support as we can to the child and to the parents as well, because I also understand as a parent also it can be so difficult to navigate through, you know, and as Rida said so beautifully, you know, that we're not supposed to just kind of guide them through and help them build that skill set to learn and to deal with those situations instead of kind of spoon feeding them, you know, this is the solution, this is what you do, you know, because eventually they will also become adults. And then, you know, that guidance, obviously, our parents to hamesha saath mein rehte hain, there are always people around to guide us. But, you know, learning to set those boundaries for ourselves, they kind of pick it up from the parents. And, you know, you also mentioned how in your own experience, you know, starting off, you ended up setting some very high standards for your child, you know, and I want to understand, where do you think that was coming from? And, you know, reflect a little bit on your childhood and your own experiences.
So, first thing I want to really mention here is that I can relate to when you're saying Bayview High as an institution is concerned about helping their students, you know, at this age where there's so many other pressures are popping in. My children left Bayview High back in 2013 and we went to Canada to settle down. And after 5 years when we came back, the kids went back to the school. And this is, I remember when the school, the management, the teachers were so helpful because, you know, what they left was not there. The friends were gotten into another circles. And coming back to a school where they were as kids was again not very easy because, you know, they might not find those friends who were with them 4 years ago. And so I just really want to tell you that I've had an experience of going through a phase where the girls were very skeptical and sort of scared of going back to Bayview High, and the management of the school, even the support staff. I mean, Nadeem Bhai at the gate was so helpful, and he would remember Meher and was like, oh, we're so glad you're back. These little things have added so much value to my children's you know, well-being, and I'm very thankful to Bayview High for that. Now coming back to your question, setting high standards, I actually said, and I want to say it again, nowadays parents want to do that, and they do it not because they want to make it difficult for their children. It is because this is how the environment is. I've mentioned this word competition a few times, and it's there, and we're all feeling it, we're all facing it. The parents maybe unnaturally set those standards because they don't want their child not to be a part of the system. We're all moving, and we are all moving at a very fast pace. So it's very natural that those standards that we are setting for our children are high, as opposed to what I had as a child. I feel this generation gap between me and my children is humongous. Reason being that things that were okay for me as a teenager, you know, some years ago is really not okay with my children at this point in time because now the times have changed.
I'd like to add to that, Mahwash, as you also mentioned about competition, you know. So competition comes from standard actually, and standard is not that my child needs to color blue in the sky. Standard is on which action have you actually applauded your child, on which action, on which behavior have you told your child that I'm proud of you. That sets the standard for that child. So you know how healthily, how organically, how oftenly you mention that, you know, I'm proud of you, or you're doing a great job, you're being wonderful. That helps them acknowledge that, okay, there is no par or there's no standard for me to achieve, or I do not have to wait for an action in order to receive these words of affirmation from my parents. So I think standard needs to be looked at it from that angle, that which behavior, which actions are we choosing to reinforce when it comes to children, when it comes to teenagers, and often the adults as well.
So I hear you, and that's such a good point, Rida and Mahwash. And you know, I'm curious to know, Mishaal, what do you have to say, you know, on being on the receiving end of it, of all this pressure? What do you have to say? How does it feel to be in that moment?
I think, again, it comes from your childhood, the way you've been groomed into a person. Like, for example, personally, my mother or my father, they created a standard for me. And I think every parent does that to a child, that they create a standard which, because the child is growing up, they're oblivious to it, so they think it's the normal standard. So once a child grows up and they start to like realize what's going around them, I think coming back to the point of difficult years, the teenage years are where a child is coming out of their parents' umbrella. It's like they're realizing what's going around you, and then they start to realize the standard also. So there are many children who might move away from that standard. They might be like, okay, I don't want to do that. So they might go to their own way, and they're going to find different things they're interested in. And maybe they'll come back, or maybe they'll grow into their own standard. Then personally, like let's say for me, when I started realizing there's a standard, and I started like coming into, I think 6th, 7th grade, I started realizing, oh, you know, my standard's like pretty high than others, and I'm doing pretty well. So then I started realizing, okay, you know, maybe I want to move away from that. And my mother started coming down from the standard. She's, you know, my siblings were growing up. So then she started grooming with them. So when I was there, instead of moving away from that standard, instead of breaking down that standard, I took it a step further. And many children do that. Many children stay with that, or they actually move a step further. So coming back to that, I think for me, I started becoming into a more stubborn person. It happens, and it started becoming more into like, okay, I want to do this, I'm going to do it perfectly, and I'm going to do this. So it does happen. Sometimes you take a step further, sometimes children just stay with that. But I think either way, a parent's trying to do their best in your childhood. And I think in that way, growing up, I did become the best person I possibly could be right now. And I think I've groomed very well into the person I am today.
That's so good to hear.
Wow. It's good to be That's so
That's
wholesome.
lovely.
It's good to be making your parents proud.
Absolutely.
They're very happy to see you.
So I hear that, you know, you have adjusted your boundaries or your standards, and your mom has come down, and you've somehow found a middle ground to connect, right? So I want to ask you, what helps you connect with the caregiver or with the parent? What are some things that parents can do to connect better with you?
Personally, because when I entered my own teenage years, my father passed away. So because of that, because my family was together in this, so other people outside that, like let's say you or my friends or peers, they might not understand where I'm coming from. So at times when I would be dealing with something and I don't know how to react, or I'm ranting to you, and a person outside my bubble, outside what I've been through, doesn't understand that, they might give me their opinion or advice which I don't understand or which I don't like. So then I'll come back to my parents. So just like that, your parent needs to support you in a way that you go back to them, that you realize that their opinion will be the best for you. So I think you need to start doing that as your child is growing up, because in that way they will realize and they will come back to you each time. And I think that stays with you even through your adult life then.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Mishaal, for sharing something so personal and so profound. It does not sound easy to have been through that time. And I'm sure even as parents, you know, it must be so difficult to help your child navigate through these difficult times of conflict.
It is, and this is where parents have to help them become a stronger, much better human being in this competitive world, you know.
Makes sense. And Rida, so I would come to you on what are some strategies that the parents and students can use to navigate through these times of conflicts? You know, if I give you a small example, I think something that does come up in this world of digital times is cyberbullying, or, you know, bullying in school. So what are some strategies that you would suggest?
I think before that, I'd just like to acknowledge both of them as parent and as student. I think conflicts are equally stressful and challenging for both. And wherever there are healthy relationships, there are conflicts. So conflicts are an opportunity for us to grow through that relationship. When it comes to strategies, I think we used to learn this in biology, that building block of living beings is cell. But I think I'd like to add to that, that building block of relationship is empathy. So before actually looking at strategies, you first have to realize and see that you and the child and the teenager and the adolescent are two different people. You are not them, they are not you. So when you understand to take that perspective into mind, it helps you to calm down. So first is empathy, second is calming yourself down, regulating your own emotions as parent, as caregivers, being mindful for what the child is actually trying to tell you. What is it that they're saying? So in a scenario like bullying, which is kind of a very burning situation these days, mostly children are scared that they will be judged, or this is something that's not going to be welcomed. So they already know that this is something that's not really safe, right? So when they're coming to the parent, what they want from the parent is somebody to understand the reason why our kid might have chosen to do what they are doing, and trying to help them understand what are other safer ways to go about that. So open communication actually comes from when you are listening to your child, when you are helping them understand what is it that they want, and how is that in sync with safety, in sync with, again, fun as well, because you can't really take away those gadgets from children, from students. You have to tell them that there are safer ways to experience the same modality and the same gadget as well.
Absolutely. So speaking of fun, I've got a very fun activity for all three of you. Awesome. Right? So here's some Play-Doh I've got with me. So there is some Play-Doh, right? And I will be giving you some prompts, right? So I will be telling you to make something, and the idea is to make something collaboratively. So you will be guiding those two how to make it, right? And the two of you have to collaborate together. So to make that item, the catch here is that we've got 30 seconds to do it.
Okay.
So we've got a time limit to work with, okay? And so this is how we're gonna go about it. The idea is to kind of symbolize collaborative work, right? That even in our life outside this show or this episode, right? We have to work collaboratively with each other, right? So that's how we're gonna go. So for the starters, we're gonna make a basket, and your time starts now.
I'll make the upar ka hissa.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's just put it like
You have to guide them.
Let me read this.
Well, we just did actually.
Oh, it's done. Okay. All right. So that was rather easy to do. So some situations are easier, right? And then the next one is you have to make a braid.
A what?
A braid.
Braid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay.
How about you guys first talk to each other as to what's on your mind?
See, we're actually getting exactly what we're doing, and yeah, so we're gonna twist this, yeah, make it a little more. Yeah, that's perfect.
Do you know how to make a braid?
So yeah, kind of the mommy thing.
The mommy. So the mommy's making the braid, yeah?
Yeah. So you wanna do it too? Yeah, twist it. Just to the
I think that's enough.
yeah.
Camera
Yeah.
Okay.
Here it is.
All right. It's very fast. I love it.
Is there a winning prize?
And we're not good
Taps
enough.
maybe. Okay. So the third prompt is, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Make an elephant.
Okay. You make the body. I'm making two.
The trunk?
Yeah, the trunk and the
They don't need my help.
and the.
I love it.
The energy, I love the connection that you guys are sharing.
Thank you. And then yeah, very good. Perfect. This is the trunk, and then the two
Seconds are ticking.
flaps. Yeah, like the ears. Okay.
I'm just making 2 laps.
Yeah, perfect. That's fine.
Wonderful. Constantly communicating with each other. What
Oops,
we are doing.
oops.
Love it.
It's gone.
It's okay. We'll just make it really
Failures
quick.
are part of
Oh, that's okay.
How many seconds do you have? We have about
I don't have a
5
head.
seconds left.
Okay, you know what? Give me the head
You
first.
can do it, guys.
This is, there's no head. This is,
Okay.
here.
Two.
It's headless.
5,
No, you just got a
4,
head and two.
Yeah.
3, 2, and they did it. Oh my God, I love it. I know, I love the ears. Congratulations, that was a difficult one.
Yeah.
And I love how there is no right and wrong here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. All right, that looks adorable.
I might take it with me.
Okay, so the last prompt is, are you ready for this one?
The difficult one.
Yes. Statue of Liberty.
I don't even remember what it looks like.
Okay. I'm going to make. Okay, you're going to make the body. Just make the body, and I'm
Okay.
going to make the crown.
No, I don't know.
The body,
I'll just
Go with the flow.
yeah.
the crown, and the lamp.
Oh, I got it right.
Yeah, perfect. So, so then this is the crown. And
Her
then
torch.
the torch in her hand.
Wow,
It's
it
a little
looks
bigger
like
than
The time is ticking. You have 15 seconds left.
Yeah.
Cowboy hat.
Yeah.
Do you think this looks like a little?
The torch.
Yeah, the torch.
10 seconds left.
Coordination
I hope
that
it's
these two
stay.
have.
Okay, you know what?
10.
Let's just do it. No, let
It's
me
yeah.
grab it, dear. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
Okay. It's
5,
Okay.
4, 3, and you did it!
Yeah, clapping for us also.
All right, that looks amazing.
Actually, yes.
Right? I loved how you did not even need to, kind of help them through.
I like this part of the job.
And this was as if my own daughter is sitting here,
Yeah.
and we exactly know how we have to go about
Absolutely.
the assignment.
And I think this could be our takeaway from today's episode of creating safe spaces for each other, for the parents, for the child, and for the child as well, to listen and to keep an open communication with each other. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all that you did today. And at Bayview High School, we really value supporting our students emotionally and through their emotional struggles, and acknowledging that it's not only the students that we have to support, but also the caregivers. And I think it's important to come together as a community. Join us in making emotional well-being a priority for all. And if you like what we have had to offer to you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for watching.